What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for Your Overwatch. In our previous video, we told you what the top level meta was all about, but in today's video, I'm going to break down the best strategies for working with random teammates in ranked at most levels of play, because the top meta right now requires quite a bit of FPS skill, and if you're lacking that at a low rank, sure, you could pick those things and improve and maybe see success, but if you could have done that, you probably were already at a higher rank to begin with. So what we're going to start is talking about Reinhardt. And the great thing about his most recent buffs to both steadfast and his move speed while shielding, it makes him way more flexible than we're used to him being, where in the past, if you didn't have certain characters around him, he felt unplayable. Now, as you go up and up and up the ranks, I think Reinhardt falls off, but the lower you are, the more you can control your own destiny as Reinhardt, which isn't something that he's been able to save for himself in quite a long time in Overwatch, because he can't be displaced easily. Higher move speed on his shield means he more easily can go in or get to safety. And probably the most interesting interaction that it has affected is that against characters that normally bust all tanks, like Reaper and Mei, he's a bit more defensive against it, because they don't instantly walk past his shield like they used to. Shield dancing as Reinhardt got a bit of a buff, and of course, against characters like Doomfist, Wrecking Ball, Lucio, Pharah, they just waste their time trying to dislodge you. And since few things can dislodge you, you kind of get to pick how the fight goes down. It's in your control. And what I'm going to start trying to do in videos from now on is incorporate more clips with voice comm playing live. So what you've seen in the gameplay thus far is me doing a ton of hard W pressing when we had resources, but now the enemy team finally escaping their spawn has ultimates, and you can watch here as we parry back to dodge their effectiveness, then re-engage when there's an opening to do so. Just kite this. Go point, go point, go point, go point. Go point, we can outweight the rally. We don't have to fight here. Too many ults from them. Just run, just run, just run.
Yeah.
I'm fighting on the choke. I got boots.
Bungo.
There's a shatter here, there's a shatter here.
Kill the run. Run one.
Marna fade on the point.
Ryan's just a huge winner, and if you don't have insane mechanics, you definitely can learn Ryan and see some success. Now, the other tank pick that I would say is quite strong at playing the ranked metagame is Zarya. Now, she'll be weak if the enemy is succeeding at playing dive, as that has always been strong against Zarya. She just doesn't have mobility, and Bubble's better in Brawl rather than saving a teammate from a mobility threat. But it's not like anybody's playing that anyway. And when you combine with Reinhardt play as well, I think Ryan's Zarya is pretty incredible for mid-tier ranked. Because the things that make Zarya Ryan unplayable, I'd say, is perfect Batiste lamp placement, which allows for defending teams to set up extreme amounts of firepower that the Ryan Zarya tank line can't sustain. But short of that, when you're pressing W, oftentimes the lamps are killable in the middle of the brawl, and they don't get as much value in ranked as they do at higher tiers where the positioning's much better. And as I've always said about Zarya, she's just a great character for dealing with odd man situations where your teammate goes on a wacky flank. Well, Zarya is the best way to bail them out when doing that. And when you play her correctly and know when to rotate out of the fight to hold on to your charge and stay alive, well, with less barriers in the game, there's more opportunities to find something to cook. At higher tiers, it is probably true that Orisa outclasses Zarya, but I think the thing everybody forgets when saying that is high-level Orisa play requires basically perfect halt usage, and I don't see that until GM, frankly. Zarya's playstyle is more flexible to adapt to whatever your team wants to do, whereas halt with Orisa requires a certain level of teamwork for it to get the value it's supposed to. And as well, if your team feeds, you don't get stronger as Orisa, and if your team feeds as Zarya, you can turn that into a benefit for you. We are going to sprinkle in some live commentary gameplay now as well. In this gameplay clip, I think it shows a good example of rotating in and out of the fight using Bubble, tracking down the best target of the bunch, and as well setting up for some pretty big grabs. And when you're able to play this aggro, you can see how Ryan Zarya can beat Orisa Sigma when the enemy's not using clutch Mei walls and immortality fields like the highest level would to stop this play from working.
Nice go. Good speed in. You're good at them. Good. You can die. Not anymore.
Level 5. Yeah, when the Orisa fortifies like that, run past her. Like, we don't want to Damn it, something we can't go. McCree one, McCree one, McCree one. No stun on McCree. McCree's one, McCree's one.
I don't know, Nate. He's done.
Can Bubble you Reaper?
Still
Bears are in my way. Try to target the Ana, I think, on the side here.
We got it.
Yeah, just stay on it. Go.
Ana's feeding, Ana's feeding.
Just on point. I don't know if they know me. Shooting.
I have Bubble right here, right?
Fucking needs to die. Okay, heals here. Nice.
They're gonna have Flux.
Yeah, I got B for it.
Eat spam, eat spam. Come back.
Don't let the strictly kill me.
Come on,
if he
6.
does, we just lose.
Hanzo one on the choke. Got him.
Oh, that's bad. That's bad.
I have Bubble ran. Kite this. Kite this.
Back up, no shield.
It's on the right.
LOS.
Yep. Going point. Watch McCree left side. Feeding us as well. Just run away with that.
We're at 1.
I think you guys got that. Yeah. Nice. All right, get this McCree here. And then we're good.
Ryan's trying to flank Shatter. Nope, can't anymore. Bubbling you out. I'll grab in 1 second.
Feeding you. Oh, it's bad.
I got it.
Get the more.
I'm in.
Where's the more?
Also one in it.
Nice. I got.
So there you can see when we have Ryan, Zarya, Lucio, and use cover well, their support character picks were just really exploitable to the point where their tanks just couldn't cover or contest anything. Both Zarya and Ryan by themselves, especially when Zarya gets charged, are such threats to Sigurisa that they can't really W past them. So you can just set them up around corners, around pillars, just control the front line entirely if the enemy isn't playing the top meta counters to them. I think Sigma has better solo queue carry potential when he's actualized, but I also think he's harder to play. Like every ability he has, other than Grasp, I guess, is harder to utilize than Zarya's kit. And she's more about movement than pure aim like Sig is mostly, which I think is just an easier skill set to learn. Honorable mention to Wrecking Ball, who's an absolute monster on this patch in Ranked. The only problem is with Ball, I don't think he's easy to learn how to play. And he's not easy to play around. In Ranked, a lot of teams just simply won't know where to stand, and instead of taking corners and using cover and staying away from the objective themselves to create crossfires with the ball, they'll just stand out in the open like they have a shield protecting them when they don't. So going ball can just get your whole team killed if they don't know how to path and position. So even if you are good at ball, it can be a rough pick sometimes, but you'll have to weigh that out based on your own individual play. Ball definitely can hardcore carry lobbies though, but we'll talk more about him in future videos. As for the damage category, I hate to harp on about it forever and ever, but the Reaper problem isn't going away. So interestingly enough, because the game is about ranged peak now at the highest tier, you're not going to hear much focus on how strong Reaper is because his playstyle gets countered by the top meta playstyle, but it's still way too good at the average Joe level of play. With just a little bit of aim and the right timing on your aggression, just going in deep with Shadow Step gives you free positioning to just click towards the enemy and kill them for free without much work. And the biggest problem that he creates for lower tiers of play is that because the APM and awareness isn't as high when he goes on these flanks, just the flow of information isn't fast enough to catch him out. By the time somebody realizes he's there, it's probably already too late. And especially even worse yet, as we showed in the Widowmaker VOD review we did recently, if you have a DPS that isn't Reaper, and if he's just standing anywhere in your team, frontline or backline, he just gets so much free value that it's pretty difficult for any average level player to outmatch how much value he gets by just holding the right aggressive position. Like, imagine if the entire enemy team was standing in a Junkrat line of sight nonstop. That's kind of what it feels like when Reaper is in the middle of your whole team, life-stealing to his heart's content. The biggest key to success with Reaper, if you want to exploit how broken he is here, is making sure that you bait out cooldown interactions and dodge whatever stuns, crowd controls, or ultimates with Wraith form. So you do have to position well to see success with Reaper, but as long as you do so and dodge at the right time, he just kills things for free. Speaking of killing things for free, my boy Junkrat is pretty darn good in the meta right now, I would say. And the reason being, he can safely poke down the enemy team and their shields, or the enemy really, from angles that he doesn't need shielding himself. So it gives you such a net buff to your front line and a nerf to theirs by picking Junkrat. I legitimately think barrier busting may even be a pretty viable high-level strategy in the right contexts. But even at mid-tier, tanks just don't know what to do when they have no barrier. And the way to counter Junkrat is to either set up better ranged line-of-sight damage threats to zone him out and essentially play in spots he can't, or to rush him down or dive him. Y'all know dive isn't really an option for most players anymore, and rushdown brawl is only a bit better, and rushdown brawl can be hard to coordinate. Hanzo may be more of a top meta pick, but Junkrat's a bit easier to play, and does a very similar job actually, but just can't hit the skill shots to the head. Okay, fine, spam shots to the head that Hanzo can. Instead, Junkrat sends spam shots to the body. I would say Mei in this slot as well, because she's just a super oppressive pick against so many different things, but I think most people already know how insane Mei is. She kind of has a niche playstyle with how to make big impact with her walls. It's a whole separate game. And if you can do that, you're going to see amazing success. But the other hero that I would point out as still pretty darn good is Doomfist, who still can punish and get a lot of free kills. He's less of the solo carry hero that he has been in the past, but I think especially if you're playing him with Rein Zarya, they all could just go in and melee things and see some pretty decent success, especially up against poor Batiste field usage. Top level players always hide it safely around corners, but in ranked, I constantly see it out in the open. And because of that, Doom is one of the best counters to it being placed in a poor spot, either just knocking the shield out of the way so you can shoot it, or knocking the target out of the way. That all can be good, but just remember, not only was he nerfed, Sigma gets more health nowadays, Orissa's fortifies better, and Reinhardt brushes him off. But up against squishies, Doom is still pretty darn lethal and is good against BAP. So I think he still has a place at the lower tier at the right time. And just at the tail end of the DPS section, honorable mention goes to Soldier 76. I know there's been a lot of talk about how BAP is just a better character than him, but newsflash, supports have been better than DPS on all accounts forever. I mean, Moira is a better Genji, so what? Like, it doesn't really mean anything. Supports have always been better. The point is, Soldier actually plays the medium range poke game really well, and in a lot of cases, if the enemy's not rushing you down or isn't playing dive, Soldier's actually pretty darn legit and super easy to play, in my opinion. Just lays down pressure constantly with less shields, visors better. And yes, if you could pick two BAPs, you would, but since you can't, Soldier's like a budget BAP, but one of the more user-friendly, easiest characters in the game, frankly. And he used to be pretty useless, but now that pressure actually matters, I think you could just stick him in a team comp and win the frontline poke battle pretty decently without needing great aim. Now onto the support line. To be real, I think BAP works at every single level as long as you learn where to place Lamp safely around corners. I keep saying it, but it's super important, and I don't think most players do it. Keep in mind, whether you let a teammate die or not, like if you throw Lamp to go save a teammate, but Lamp dies, you haven't really gained anything other than sustain, right? Whereas, even if you let a teammate out of position die, but put Lamp in a godly spot, you may still be able to frag out of that situation because they physically can't kill your damage dealers. I see a lot of BAP players try to just toss Lamp to save somebody, but that just turns it into a glorified Zarya bubble where it really is a invincibility shield to allow your ranged DPS to pop off. So if you learn that and you play BAP to a decent degree, even if you're not great at his primary attack, the rest of his kit is pretty basic, and you'll see great success. But short of that, I would say the old rushdown style supports will still see great value in a lot of situations, especially if you're playing Rein Zarya. Moira is still, I think, the best way to keep those brawler tanks alive. and Lucio's speed allows you to punish. I think a lot of players think Moira doesn't really do anything, but she still heals more than Brig and allows your tanks to carry the game, and especially at low tiers, it's not like your DPS are doing much anyway, unless they're playing Junkrat or Reaper. So because of that, picking supports that put resources into the characters that more easily do things is typically a decent way to go about it. If you do have a decent DPS on Pharah, Junk, Hanzo, or whatever, you can go Mercy and pocket them, but I don't think most teams know how to play that way, actually. With Mercy, you actually want your team to split up, and most players at lower ranks always clump up together, so you might as well play the supports that do that. The heroes I don't suggest is Ana or Zenyatta. They're just too exploitable and too hard to play. They can pop off, but if you don't have the aim to do so, you are going to struggle until you achieve that level of skill. And Brigitte is low-key, incredibly strong. She's just kind of unnecessary. There's so many other ways to punish dive, either with a good immortality field or picking Mei or Reaper, or there's all these other characters that stop dive from being good that you kind of don't need Brig, and you can get away without having her. But if you have no other option or your teammates won't swap, Brig is perfectly fine to counter enemies playing dive heroes, but I don't think you're going to see many of them, and due to their difficulty to play, you typically don't have to hard commit to countering them. But that's all 3 roles set. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out, lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you catch our next video, and hit the bell icon so that you actually get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, dank memes, funny clips, and thoughts about the metagame. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.